My name is Yolande. I was born in Sri Lanka and I identify my nationality and cultural background as Sri Lankan Australian. My parents' cultural identities were burghers. It means that we were of Norwegian heritage. This is because Colombo was Dutch and a very busy port back in the day. The Dutch intermarried, and that's how we became burghers. I lived and grew up in Sri Lanka. I attended the Catholic school in the southern suburbs of Colombo. I'm the youngest from a family of 7. We were very happy. Life was difficult, but we were very content with what we had. And my parents were beautiful. They always went without to give us our needs and made sure they educated us. And I played netball and volleyball and took part in a lot of athletics, and I won many trophies. I brought them with me for long jump and 180 meters and 100 meters. And yeah, my childhood was a really happy, lovely community. Lots of sports, friends still who keep in touch with me. And actually, when I look back, not having much and having a good childhood and lots of sincere friends and playing together. And I remember we didn't have a ball, so we took newspapers and wrapped up and made a ball. And we didn't have a goal. We couldn't afford it. We used to take the trees and make it like a goal. And we were quite happy to play netball in the garden. And of course, when I was very little, I was very ill. So I had a thing called rickets, and apparently they had given up on me. And my mother couldn't visit me because it was a highly infectious disease. And she would come and look at me at the infectious disease hospital through a little window. Apparently, I used to sit on the bed and cry, asking for my mother. And mom said she was very sad because she was not allowed to come in. When I was discharged from hospital, they burnt all my clothes because it was infectious. And then my sister made a little dress for me, and finally they put this dress on me and they brought me home. My eldest sister was very good at sewing. So it was a smocked little dress. I don't have a picture of it, unfortunately. I would have been about 4 years old. Very lucky. And for a majority of the time in Sri Lanka, I loved where I worked. Very valuable friendships and great work culture. I worked at Livan Kitchen. It was a fabulous firm, confidential secretary to the marketing director. I met my husband in Sri Lanka. We married there and had the children there. And he was also a burgher, a very knowledgeable guy, was well into music, and a very well-read man. I actually wasn't as smart as he was, but I did learn a lot from him. Yes, very nice person who took me to jazz concerts and educated me on the musical background and took me for dances and, you know, and while going to work also together, we used to go to work together, come back together. In Sri Lanka, we had a motorbike. So he used to drop me at work and he worked at the bank in the city. On the motorbike, we toured all of Sri Lanka, Doug and I. We lived in small places and moved around with the village people and the farmers and all that. It was a great experience. He took me from the south to the north. I mean, we had breaks. It was lovely. If not for him, I wouldn't have done that. My husband and I, right from the start, even after we married, we wanted to get out of Sri Lanka. But we never got the opportunity. We went to the Australian High Commission. We went for several interviews. Our file was that thick, but they wouldn't let us come here. And then we thought we'll go to New Zealand. And then Doug's father had a sister here. At that time, it was reuniting family. It was so-called like a blood relationship. So Doug's father had a sister here. And then Doug's father said, oh, maybe I should go and then get all of you. So he sold his house at an old age, and they got sponsored, and through that blood relationship, Doug's parents could come, and they lived in Teague Avenue in Mentone. And what happened was, then we were trying to come, and then Australia did away with that blood relationship thing. So Doug's father was told that we were a separate unit, and therefore he couldn't sponsor us. But at the interview, he was told, go there, get yourself a job, and we'll see that your family comes over. So then after that, we thought we'll give up the idea, and then we started on our family, because we were neither here nor there. Finally, in 1983, we moved here due to the escalating civil war. My husband and I, on the motorbike, we saw that there were all dead bodies on the street when he was going to drop me at Lever Brothers. And we thought, what was going on? And then when I went into the office, my husband rang me up and said, don't leave the office, there's been a civil riot. The civil riots were mainly between the Tamil and the Sinhalese. It was nothing to do with the Burghers. Jaffna Peninsula is right at the top and predominantly Tamil. Down south, it's predominantly Sinhalese. And the cities and all, it's a mix. So the people in Jaffna, they wanted it as a different state. But they couldn't give it as a different state because Sri Lanka is such a small country. But the Tamil people felt they were hard done by. Fortunately for me, the company organized cars to take us back to our homes. And it was a long journey because throughout our journey we were stopped and the rioters were siphoning petrol from the cars and setting fire to buildings. And they would put their heads in and ask, are you Tamil? And the Tamil people, they had a different accent. And they would get asked to repeat certain words that the Tamil people couldn't repeat properly. And we did everything they asked us to do. And when they wanted to siphon our particular car, the petrol of our car, the driver was Sinhalese and he said, oh brother, in Sinhala, oh brother, why are you doing this to me? I have to take these ladies to their homes. Please don't. And they didn't because he was Sinhalese. And then when we went home, our neighbor's children had gone to school, 2 little boys, and they hadn't come. So Doug got on his motorbike and went, and when Doug went to bring them, he also faced all these protesters. And he brought these 2 little boys home. And I remember we were looking for my second daughter, and they set the Tamil house opposite us on fire. They doused it with petrol. People had left. And my daughter was so scared. We were looking everywhere for my daughter. We couldn't find her. She had crept under the bed and she was fast asleep because she was so scared. And then the Australian government wanted secretaries. So they did give you a typing and shorthand and typing test. So I went for that and I got through the test. And then they let us come. And talking about the changes when I came here, it was... I was in my 30s. I had 2 children, and it was a very big decision we made, my husband and I, because the children were studying in Sinhalese, and nowhere in the world do they talk Sinhalese. But we spoke English at home, and every Saturday my husband took the children for English classes in addition. And it was hard for us to teach and take their homework or anything because my husband and I studied in English and we did Sinhalese as a subject. So we finally migrated here when I was in my 30s, and it was very difficult because we left behind our family, friends, good jobs, and had to restart life all over again with different weather conditions. We came via Singapore and they had never seen shops like that. Oh, they wanted this, they wanted that, and everything. And unknowingly, when we went home and unpacked, they had helped themselves to erasers and pencils and all these lies. They got so excited, the little devils. I said, why did you take these? Yeah. Yes. And then we came to Queensland. Doug had a very good childhood friend. And even he had gone and spoken to the Member of Parliament saying, why are these people being turned down? Why won't you give them a chance? And he also tried to initiate things. And then he was so happy that ultimately we got the green light to come here. He said, you're not going anywhere without coming here first. And when we were there, he was showing us all these job vacancies in the papers and saying, don't be crazy, don't go to Melbourne, stay here. And Dad said, look, my old man, he will die if he knows I have changed my mind. I have to go. And you should have seen the children. They were little. They thought the beaches were like Sri Lanka. And they both jumped in the water and they came out of the water. Purple, because as it is, they are, dark skin. And I had put towels around them. And anyway, Doug's friend was very, very kind to us, took us to SeaWorld. And these children were rapt. They had never seen anything like that. And then we came to Melbourne. And then the fun started, isn't it? I brought my furniture that I started my married life with. And also my Doug's grandmother gifted us one of her chairs, which is antique, and it's called a feeding chair. And this is called like a kavichi. It's all handmade. We thought we will bring a bit of Sri Lanka here. And the fabric is from a place called Barefoot. And the owner of it was Barbara Sansoni, who passed away recently. And it's 100% cotton. I thought it would be something different in Australia because you don't get this 100% and such hand-woven stuff. I got them all sewn there. So every year, I never fail to visit Barbara Sansoni. Barefoot. I told the taxi driver, take me to Barbara Sansoni. And he said, I don't know where you're going. So I said, barefoot. He said, oh, yeah, barefoot. So then felt very homesick and very often wanted to go back. But my husband is the one who was strong and said, I think things are going to get better, so we'll stay here. It was very challenging. The only problem I had was that every job interview I went for, in shorthand, you can say that whether you fared well or not, because when you present it and transcribe it. But the only failing was they said, oh, you fared very well, but we can't give you the job because you don't have Australian experience. And I said, but give me the job to get the experience. How am I going to get this experience? Can you, educate me on that? And they didn't know what to tell me. Every person told me. I went for about 5 interviews. It was very, I thought I'll never get a job at this rate. Veteran Affairs had a job for a typist. I thought I had to start somewhere. I would have done anything. So I went for this test. About 150 of us sat for the test in a big hall. And in no time I had finished typing. And I said to the lady, I finished. And she said, no, keep typing. And I came first in that test. And they gave me a certificate and they offered me a job at Veteran Affairs. And they said, don't think that you would achieve much in working as a typist. Definitely won't be like Sri Lanka, because in my resume I had written how I worked as a stenographer and rose up, right? Anyway, I thought it's a stepping stone. Anyway, in the meantime, Department of Justice had jobs for stenographers and I had applied for that. So I said, I'll start work, but can you give me about a month? Because I preferred to work as a stenographer, which was more money. And it was at Moorabbin. Veteran Affairs was at St Kilda. And I lived in Mentor, in units on Warrigal Road. So then I got the job at Department of Justice and proved myself, yes. They were a lovely lot to work for, including the trims. I worked for community corrections. When I first moved here, people made me very welcome and rallied around us and helped us in many ways with school and extra activities. at Mentone Primary. The principal one day, they said they'll give uniforms, and because Doug and I didn't have jobs. But then Doug's mother was a good seamstress, and she bought the fabric and whipped up uniforms for them. They also said they were very well-mannered children and very loving, and how did they achieve it? That's what the principal said, that they're getting on very well. And soon they were Aussies. Oh my God, even their accents change. You should have listened to the way Julia and Andrea were talking. I couldn't understand it. And my husband and I used to have a bit of a chuckle about it. They were 12 and 5, I think, when we brought them out and put them straight into school. So being Catholic, I put the younger one into St. Patrick's because she had to receive Holy Communion and confirmation. And the older girl went to Mentone Primary, and from there she went to girls' secondary. And the second one, once she finished at St. Patrick's, she also went to Mentone Secondary Girls' School. Late in 1984, we sold a house in Sri Lanka. And when the money came back, I said to my husband, whatever happens, I want my own home. And so we bought this house. And the children, when they of a certain age, I used to take the little one to school, but the older girl used to ride her bike because there was another girl at the top of our road who went to the same school. They loved it. They made friends easily. Other moms used to take them for brownies and calisthenics and all those extra activities outside school. The people were very, very helpful. Yeah. Like, I couldn't drive to Ballarat. So one of the ladies would come and pick us up for the championships and take us there. It was good. Except at Mentone Secondary, there was this teacher called Mr. Barnes, who was the English teacher, and he always used to pick on Julia, the older one. One day he had just rubbished her about the bit of English she had produced, and he said something like, "Get out of my class" or something. So what she did was, she got out of the class and she came home and rang me at work. And she said, "Mr. Barnes told me to get out of the class." So I immediately rang the school and I said, "This is not on. Why did you ask my daughter to get out of the class?" And I said, "She's very young, Now, I don't know where my daughter is," I said. I thought I'll play a game, right? And I said, "Now you go and look for my daughter and you ring me, and I would like to speak to Mr. Barnes because that's not how you treat young children." So anyway, they panicked, and anyway, we had a bit of a laugh. And Julia now tells her 15-year-old daughter, "If you have any troubles at school, just tell Nana. Nana will ring the teacher." And then Andrea got Mr. Barnes and never found a problem with Mr. Barnes. He was so good to her. And Andrea was very good too in her studies. Not that Julia wasn't. Julia was very persevering. And both children really took up what Australia had to offer us. We would never have had that in Sri Lanka. So they made use of it and persevered, and they're both done good. So we did for our children the way we could afford it, right? Because we bought this house, and in those days, the wages were not very high. And we gave them what they wanted and went without. But we did good. Yeah. So it was a struggle. And then, of course, in 2011, sadly, Doug passed away. I had taken my long service leaves because I worked at the Department of Justice here in Hyatt, and thought that he and I could travel. We traveled a fair bit, but I thought we could travel more after we retired. But it was not meant to be. And I didn't go back to work. I thought I would retire too and finish it off. And I have gained a grandson, a granddaughter, and a great son-in-law. Both girls have done very well in their lives. And my husband's family still lives in Kingston. And I have a large, wide circle of friends. They're all not Sri Lankan. Of course, I have a small circle, my husband's school friends. I entertain them with their wives. So I keep in touch with them. And I also keep in touch with we call it the Lever Brothers group, and have that little group as well. So life is good here. Yeah. I still have family there. I have 2 brothers and a sister there. But they have children living here who I helped to come across. When I see what's going on there, it breaks my heart. And of course, there's a selfish side of me, which I can't go there and live anymore. And even when I go there, like I want to come back home to Australia. So Australia has grown on us. We've been living in Kingston throughout our lives. And I love it because I know everybody when I walk up the street, when I go for my exercise class. Even when I walk on the beach, you find everybody on the street walking, you know. We love Kingston.